What's going on, Falcon fans? It's Warukundo coming back at you with another video. Today we're going to talk about the franchise deadline, what has come and passed, guys who did get franchise tag that probably takes the Falcons off the list unless it's some kind of trade that they want to trade for some of these guys. And then we're going to talk about some free agents that the Falcons definitely can potentially get coming up here starting on the 11 they can start negotiating with. There's a lot of names out there that these teams are really, cutting guys, trying to get below the cap, clearing up a lot of cap space, going out trying to figure out how they're going to build their team. So it's interesting. There's a lot of names out there that you wouldn't expect. The Atlanta Falcons definitely target. They do have funds, and we're going to talk about that today. Also, talk about a couple of guys that Atlanta Falcons have re-signed to the roster. Um, not a couple of underrated signings, but both of these guys definitely contributed last year to the Atlanta Falcons team. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about um, the little cap space where the Atlanta Falcons stand still, where I think we have some more room to probably get some cap space if we would like to before the start of the new league year. So with that being said, guys, if you have not already, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. Please hit that notification bell so you know I drop another video. Please hit the like button as I know you guys like to hear that talk about game. Please share my video throughout the YouTube universe so more people can come in and hear me talk about. That's right, these Atlanta Falcons. So we get right into the first topic of tonight, where the Atlanta Falcons have re-signed Ryan Newsel and Nate Landman back to the roster. Like I said, both of these guys really contributed last season. Of course, Ryan Newsel had a little limited, role because he filled in for our center at the time when he went down. But he really played well when he came in. I don't really think the Atlanta Falcons really had a drop off so much at the center position. So you like you know Ryan Newsom coming in playing behind Drew Dalman, adding to that depth. Like I said, it was a good thing that we really was had the opportunity to keep Dwayne Ledford there. So the offensive line is intact, but bringing back Ryan Newsom, I think, was a really good signing for the Atlanta Falcons. And this is where some of these signings could seem a little underrated, but you have to have depth, at positions, and we want our offensive line to, continue to have that depth. We do have our starting five coming back from the offensive line, but building depth on the offensive line is always a big thing. So I like to see with the Atlanta Falcons, bring back Ryan Newsel, and then for Nate Lemon, bringing him back on that exclusive tag. I think honestly, what's going on, Carrie? Um, and bringing Nate Landman back and get him for that exclusive tag, I think it was just kind of steal, right? Since he was undrafted free agent, they gave him the exclusive tag, so he come back for another cheap deal, and because I think if he would have went on the market, he probably could have got a little bit more than what Atlanta Falcons signed him for. But now I think the Atlanta Falcons have a great problem, with Troy Anderson coming back, the way Caden Ellis played yesterday, and then Nate Lemon, the way he just, you know, showing up on the scene. Now, where do Atlanta Falcons stand in the linebacker position? Who's going to get that start? We do have a new, coaching scheme on defense. Frank Bush is no longer the inside linebacker coach, so you know this is a clean slate for all three of these guys. We'll see how it pans out. In my opinion, I think they all should be on the field, especially because we're going to the 3-4 defense. I think Kate Ellis has the ability to rush the passer, and he actually showed a lot of ability as well in pass coverage more than he probably had played in some few years with the Aints, but he showed that he can play in pass coverage. But I think his strength is being able to get after the passer. Um, Nate Lamon, man, is just a prototypical old school linebacker guy who come downfield. He feels the hole well. I mean, had over 100 tackles. So what can you say about a guy like Nate Lemon? And then, of course, Troy Anderson has all the athletic abilities to be one of the best linebackers in this league. But he still has some growing to do. I think it kind of hurt him last year going down, but He still has a lot of upside, and I think he's just really starting to scratch the surface. So I like our linebacker group. Probably need to add one more guy there just to solidify the depth at that position. But bringing back Ryan Newsom and Nate Landman is definitely a plus for Atlanta Falcons, and I love that all the way. So guys, let me know what you think about Nate Landman coming back. Um, and let's get into some of this other talk for our Atlanta Falcons. The next topic is just about the cap space. I came here last week and I talked about potentially cap space that the Atlanta Falcons can add, by cutting a few guys here, and still only guy that we have got the word that they cut so far was, guys, don't make me, who did we cut last week? I can't even remember his name. um but we only cut one guy so far. So, and it was expected, but I was anticipating guys like Taylor Heineke to be cut, and guys like Lorenzo Carter. Maybe I think he has the most chance to come back. Mike Hughes, another guy, even though our cornerback depth is not where we would like it to be, but a guy like Mike Hughes definitely could be. And then Ali Okendazi was the other guy um, that I thought that they might could cut the Ashton cap space. But however, guys, we still got time to find out what Atlanta Falcons going to do, especially when you see all the other cuts going around the league of big name guys, and then you see the Falcons keeping guys that we thought they could be able to add some cap space to to this to this offseason, especially in the fact where we're trying to go be aggressive in offseason. Basically, that's what they said anyway. So we have time. I think you want to be able to get it done by the new league year, if anything. Of course, we know that the negotiation tampering time starts on Monday, so the Atlanta Falcons definitely start talking to free agents at that point and see can they go get and fill some of these holes and needs that we have for free agency. Sort of like they did last year during the off season. So one other caveat with that as well, we still waiting to hear about AJ Terrell's contract. Um, we know for a fact that it's probably something going on behind the scenes. Just like last season, we don't hear a lot in the news, from the Atlanta Falcon front office and they players, talk about negotiating contracts. I kind of like the way Terry Fontenot handles that kind of business because there's not a lot of noise out there. We don't hear, anything about it like last year when we got Christian Lindstrom a new deal. We didn't hear about it until the deals was pretty much solidified. So I anticipate the same thing for AJ Terrell. Of course, he's going into his fifth season, so we would like to get that done before the new league year two. And if that happens, that will definitely open up more cap space for these Atlanta Falcons as well. So just we'll wait to see if we hear any more news about that cap space, and where are they going with it. And the reason why it's such a big deal, in my opinion, because um, all the chatter and all the rumors going around about some of these highly touted free agents out there. You want to know where the Falcons stand from a calorie salary cap standpoint, so we can know who they potentially could target, right? So when we talk about free agents, we're gonna definitely get into our first free agent, which is our offensive free agents this year. And there are a lot of guys that the Atlanta Falcons could definitely consider on the offensive side of the ball. In particular, for me, I'm definitely looking at the quarterback position. Right, we know that's one of the positions that they definitely need to be aggressive in. So one of the options they definitely have is in free agency for quarterbacks as well. The second talented guy in the free agent roster listed right now is a Kirk Cousins. So we just talked about that. So if the Atlanta Falcons definitely, is going to sign Kirk Cousins, they definitely going to need that cap space that I just talked about, what I just mentioned in that. But definitely a guy that they may be considering free agencies, especially if the Minnesota Vikings does not get anything done by that Monday deadline that I was just mentioning, that teams can start negotiating with players. And I feel if Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings does not come up with an agreement by that Monday deadline, I believe the Atlanta Falcons definitely going to be aggressive going after Kirk Cousins. I know it's mostly a rumor, but for some reason, believe me, where there's smoke, there's fire. Just for one reason, because we have the whole um, Justin Fields noise has really slowed down a whole lot, and I believe that since the Atlanta Falcons probably is waiting on to see what happened with Kirk Cousins. So if Kirk Cousins is not signed by Monday, I think they're really gonna go heavy in trying to get him to come to Atlanta, and we're gonna need some of that cap space that I just talked about. Now, I'm not in the same belief that if we get a guy like Kirk Cousins, we won't be able to go out and get other free agents, because the way teams can structure deal nowadays, by adding on voided years and things like that to player contracts, especially in that first year of the contract, they're able to make this year's salary be little or nothing, especially if they give them a signing bonus and things like that. So they can structure this year contract for Kirk Cousins and still have a lot of room left for us to go out and get other free agents as well. So I'm not too concerned about it. I still don't like it because you just start having nightmares about where we were a couple of years ago in salary cap hell. With signing big name free agents that was we had probably had on the roster a little too long. Um, but you at some point you're gonna have to pay a quarterback, and if they're going out to get veteran quarterback, um, like I said, probably the second coveted free agent in this year's free agency class this off season, and you're probably going to pay for him. It's just the way it's going to be. So I don't believe that it will hurt us as much as people think it will. I mean, especially if they decide to do some restructure with other contracts and stuff as well. So I still think the Atlanta Falcons can get Kirk Cousins and still be aggressive and filling some of our other needs and stuff as well. So not as much as we wanted, because it really would have been nice. But if they go out and pursue Kirk Cousins, which I believe they will, if he does not strike a deal by Monday with the Minnesota Vikings. So just be on the lookout for that. What's going on, Wallace? What's going on? Now I do believe that the Atlanta Falcons could still be in the market for other free agents as well. I think Russell Wilson is definitely looking at. I mean, one reason you have to take a peek at Russell Wilson, just the mere fact that it's really a win-win if it pans out. I mean, a guy that's making 39 million from his former team, and then so basically we don't have to pay him at all. And if he comes in, and when the way I'm looking at it for a guy like Russell Wilson is to be that bridge quarterback. It's just that simple. A guy to come in and sign him for 1 year deal, to prove it deal for himself. But we can actually go out and draft a guy um, if you bring in a guy like Russell Wilson, because I mean the risk is so low. I mean, potentially he can play on league minimum contract, and he still is going to get paid his $39 million. So um, that risk is low. I mean, we're talking about a guy now. His first 10 seasons in the league was probably a lot to be in the Hall of Fame. It's been tarnished a little bit by these last 2 seasons, but I mean, if you look at what he did last year, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, he still could be a viable option. But I know he's not on top of the Atlanta Falcons list. But at the same time, as a free agent from the offensive side, the Falcons gotta be able to just take a look at it and see if it's a possible that a guy like Russell Wilson could fit this team, because with that price tag, you just have to consider it. I just don't see why no team would consider it, especially if he want to come to Atlanta. I know about all the off-field stuff. That stuff does not matter to me at all. I'm talking about the fit with the team and how he can actually help. Not for a long-term deal, but definitely I can see him being that bridge quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. Wallace says, just like Terry said, they're in a good situation now to get players that they want in free agency, and I agree with you 100%. I don't think um, we're going to be strapped in any way to go get players in free agency. So if the player that we want, somebody that we think we can actually target, I think the Atlanta Falcons definitely going to try that. There's other free agent quarterbacks that's out there that we could definitely talk about. Baker Mayfield, the B1, he has not signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers yet. Then you start going to some lower tier guys, you know, uh, guys like Gardner Minshew, guys like Jacoby Brissett, guys like Ryan Tannehill, guys like that, potentially could definitely be guys that Atlanta Falcons consider. But I don't think if any of those guys come in, it would be a veteran, deal, being a backup or something like that, depending on what happened with Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke. So we definitely have to consider some of those quarterbacks being backups if the Atlanta Falcons want to go that route. So that's the quarterbacks from offensive standpoint. From some other targets that they definitely might want to look at on the offensive side of the ball, I would really be thinking about receivers. One guy comes to mind, Tyler Boyd from the Cincinnati Bengals. Definitely a guy that Atlanta Falcons can consider bring in. Of course, we know they're probably going to address the wide receiver in the draft, but Tyler Boyd is a veteran guy they can bring in. We need to be able to fill that roster spot. Gabe Davis is another guy that the Atlanta Falcons could definitely consider as well from a wide receiver standpoint. Um, he the production that he had with the Buffalo Bills was more you know, touchdowns, not a lot of receptions, but this guy stayed in the end zone, making catching stuff like that. So if the Atlanta Falcons wanted to target a guy like Gabe Davis, I don't think it would cost them a whole lot for a guy like Tyler Boyd or Gabe Davis. Of course, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown is another guy they can definitely consider, in the free agency market from a receiver standpoint. Then of course, you got the guys like Calvin Ridley, Odell Beckham Jr., so on and so forth, guys that they maybe could consider, you know, for free agents from an offensive standpoint. But in my opinion, I do believe the Atlanta Falcons is going to target some receivers in free agency. Of course, they're going to look at their own free agents first. Some guys that they could bring back to this team. Um, I keep saying Van Jefferson because he played with the Los Angeles Rams, so he is he's known by this coaching staff. So a guy that they definitely can consider. I just like bringing back, our two special team aces as well, Cardell Hodge and um, Mike. Can't think his name. The big guy, the big receiver that we have. Both of those guys, I definitely would think both of those guys would come back as well. So we could definitely sign our own free agents, but I think the Atlanta Falcons really going to look into free agency this off season and try to bring in a couple of receivers. Wallace said the COVID years is really what hurt us, the salary cap, because it didn't think the salary cap would be decreased, which put us in a bind. Yes, it did, because it went down to 182 million. You're correct. That really did hurt us. But with that being said, the Atlanta Falcons really that year it didn't really strap the Atlanta Falcons to. It hurt us because we couldn't add talent to the team. That's the way it hurt us. Um, because we pretty much signed a lot of guys on 1 year deals that year. So I don't think it hurt us as much. Because we didn't add, guys to long-term deals during that period. We just couldn't add a lot of talent, so we had to get a lot of guys on veteran contracts during that period. So I agree with you. It hurt us, but not to the extent where it added more, salary to our cap. We just couldn't bring any guys in. And that was pretty much for the first two seasons of the Arthur Smith, Terry Fontenot regime. So that's why we had so much hope this past season, because we had finally got out of that, and we was hoping that we could see some kind of growth from this team. But once again, we went 7-10. So That's why we got a new coaching staff right now. But yeah, that really hurt us because you expect the salary cap to go up every year like it did this season, $30 million. That was huge for not just the Atlanta Falcons but throughout the NFL. So you do expect the salary cap to keep going, and that's why I'm not really concerned about our salary cap, moving forward, because I think the Atlanta Falcons have did such a great job. I don't see them putting themselves in the bind. Yes, even if they go get a guy like Kirk Cousins, I still don't see them getting in the bind in that way. Wallace says, I wouldn't mind if they bring Mac Hollins, man. That's what I was talking about. I don't know why I can't think of these players' name. I've been talking about them all off season, but Mac Hollins and Cardell Hodge is definitely two guys they consider. I like them because they contribute on special teams as well. So that's why I like guys like that, right? Because they just not one dimensional. They might not get a lot of touches, playing being receiver, but their value on the special team is huge. So that's why both of those guys. Interesting though, if they decide to make their rule change that I talked about on Monday, moving the kickoff to the 40-yard line, I wonder how valuable some of these guys, these gunners, going to be, because they're not going to be running down the field, kickoff anymore. So, some of these guys that made a career and made a living playing on special teams, it might start to hurt some of these guys. So that's something to think about. I think our wide receiver rule is decent if used correctly. Maybe add on depth. You said we only got two players on the contract right now, right? That's Josh Ali and Drake London. That's it. That's the only two guys we got. So you saying the room is decent. We ain't got no room right now. So that's why they got to go out in free agency and sign guys, because right now they have only two guys on the contract, and that's Josh Ali, who was an undrafted guy last year, and then they got Drake London. That's it. So either way, we know they're going to add talent in the wide receiver room. We just don't know, which avenue they're going to go. They're going to go to free agency. I anticipate them going to free agency, but I anticipate them going in the draft as well. So that is a great point. What's up, Racondo? Watching from Galveston, Texas. What's up, John? Man, thanks for watching, man. Shout out to John, man. All coming our way out there from Texas. Being a Falcon fan, and watching the channel. You one of the guys that come on every time I do a show, so I appreciate it. I never going to get, because you definitely was a Kubiak disciple. We was looking for an offensive coordinator. We just hope that his son don't have a good season out there with the New Orleans Aints this year. So, but when I'm looking at offense, really, when I look at it really hard, besides for just adding depth on the offensive line, definitely adding a quarterback if they decide to go their route in free agency, and then adding receivers. I think our offense is solid. I really like where our offense at. So definitely we got rid of one of our tight ends and Jonnu Smith, but I think we still got Michael Pruitt on the squad, and we still got John Fitzpatrick, who we haven't seen get a lot of burn this as well. John Fitzpatrick is a great run blocking tight end. So I don't know how much more depth they will add that position. I think they might go out and get another guy just to be on the safe side. But from an offensive standpoint, I kind of like who we are. Definitely need to be able to add wide receivers. Avery Williams coming back to be that third running back behind Bijan and Tyler. I don't know how much they'll use a fullback, so I don't know if Keith Smith going to be back this season. Definitely he's a free agency as well. So those are some of the guys that we definitely got to think about. So, but from an offensive standpoint, I like where we're at from an offensive standpoint. We just got to figure out that quarterback position, and I know we've been talking about that all season long. So, and we're going to talk about it until they figure it out. Didn't know about our wide receiver. That's why I watch. That's why I watched the other video. Yeah, man, our wide receiver room is deserted pretty much. We got all those guys that we had on the roster was for it's free agent this year except Drake and then Josh Ali. And honestly, I didn't realize Josh Ali was on the contract, so I looked. So I just thought it was Drake. But yeah, we only got those two guys on the contract. So we definitely got to freaking figure out what we're gonna do with that position. That's a need for Atlanta Falcons. I know a lot of people's like, at number 8, how could we possibly go and get another offensive player at number 8? But you know, if Arduze or neighbor is at number 8, they're one of the best players in the draft. And yes, I can see the Atlanta Falcons taking another wide receiver at number 8. I'm just being honest about it. I mean, because if you're taking the best player available, right, and you actually feeling a need as well in this aspect because you don't have a lot of receivers on your roster, so you're feeling a need and you're taking best player available. So I definitely can see that the Falcons pulling the trigger on another receiver. I hate to say it, but it is possible. If one of those guys, of Rome Dunze or Malik Neighbors, fall to number 8, I really believe that one of those guys could definitely be picked by the Atlanta Falcons. I know, a guy like Dallas Turner or maybe even Jared Verse will be there on the board. You might want to pull the trigger because we do need to pick the pass rush. But the question is, if any of those guys higher on the board than one of those receivers, and I'm probably going to say probably not. So, and if you start reaching for needs, instead of taking the best player available, that's how you hurt. That's been the Atlanta Falcons philosophy since Terry Fontenot been here these last 3 seasons. So I don't see it changing by them, you know, going away from best player available model that they have used the last 3 seasons. So if one of those receivers on the board, I'm definitely think that that's the route they probably would go. Wallace said, if we don't get a top receiver in free agency to play number 2, we'll get it in the draft. Yeah, now one thing about, because I just talked about, taking one at number 8, but just like if you watch my draft series, talk about receivers, this is a deep class at receiver. So it's not, necessary really for them to take a guy at 8 because they'll definitely be able to find a guy in the later rounds, day 2 and day 3. They'll still be able to find solid receivers that will really be good because this draft is so deep at certain positions like offensive lineman, like the receiver position, like the quarterback is probably gonna dominate, that first round as well because there's so many quarterback needed teams. A lot of guys gonna drop just because of that, and when that happens, some first rounders going to get put into the second round, just how it's going to be, and that means some of those good receivers that probably had a first round grade by some teams is going to drop to that second round. So you definitely can see guys that you thought definitely should have been a first round grade drop to the second round. And Atlanta Falcons pick high in the second round as well at pick 43. So guess what? Once again, they can actually get a guy there. So if they're not able to get a guy in free agency, which I still believe they're going to at least get 1 or 2 guys in free agency, because you want to be able to bring some veterans in, even if it's some of our own free agents. But I it would really be surprising if they don't take a receiver in the draft as well. So maybe even 2 receivers. We'll just have to see how that pans out. But guys, from an offensive standpoint, those are free agents personally that I think they should be targeting. Marquise Brown, Gabe Davis, Tyler Boyd. They look at the quarterbacks, guys like Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, I guess. But those are guys that they definitely could be be on the lookout for. But let's talk about what we really want to talk about, and that's the defensive side of the ball, because we got to make sure that the Atlanta Falcons really, you know, patch up, what we kind of lost last season, this past season, from a free agency standpoint, right? We lost our two leading sack leaders this off season, and Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree. Both of those guys are free agents, so Atlanta Falcons could potentially bring those guys back in as well. But those are two sack leaders, both of those guys, and they're both off the team right now. So um, this is where the Atlanta Falcons, in my opinion, need to be really aggressive on the defensive side of the ball, because you know the whole notion that the Atlanta Falcons is just a quarterback away, which I kind of understand why they feel that way. But if they don't address some of these holes that they even lost this past season, and then fill some other holes, they're not gonna be the team everybody expect them to be. So can't afford to take a step back on defense. You want to see those guys even be better this season. So the whole notion of being a quarterback away, if they don't fill these holes that they got on the defensive side of the ball, it's not going to be a good thing. So that's why they need to be aggressive. Yes, and even if they go out and sign a guy like Kirk Cousins, the Atlanta Falcons still need to be aggressive in the free agency, and they need to go all in. And first guy that I'm definitely going to talk about, and everybody know who it is Danielle Hunter, right? The reason, he's the first guy because everybody know that the franchise tag deadline was yesterday, and a lot of guys that Atlanta Falcons could have considered on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball actually got franchise tags. So on the defense side of the ball in particular, Josh Allen and Brian Burns were two guys that Atlanta Falcons could have targeted. They was free agents, pass rushers, both of those guys. Josh Allen had a monster season, so we kind of figured that the Jacksonville Jaguars was not going to let him get out the door. Brian Burns was another guy. Now, I was talking about that they could use him as trade bait. They didn't want to lose him for anything, so that's why they franchise tagged him. So, but I don't think they would trade him within the division. They do need to recoup some draft picks, because they gave up their draft to go get Bryce Young, and now their team is in need of talent, so trying to so-called rebuild, getting rid of a guy like Brian Burns, because do you really want to pay him all that money and you're in that rebuild mode? So they could use him as trade bait, but Brian Burns and Josh Allen is off the table. So I think the Atlanta Falcons need to do everything they can, if possible, is try to target Danielle Hunter in the free agency and try to bring him in. That would be really, really big for the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know the price tag, but if you're going to be aggressive, like Terry Fontenot has mentioned this offseason, this is one way to do it. You go out and you go get the big fish, right? You got the salary cap to do it. We don't have the most salary cap, in the league. So a lot of teams got a lot of cheddar to spend this offseason. But you know, Danielle Hunter can definitely come in and he can help this team improve a whole lot. I mean, bringing in a guy that's gonna garner double teams when you got a guy like Grady and David Amiyata in the middle of the field, it's just amazing. So that's one thing I would try to do. However, if they can't get a guy like Danielle Hunter, Jonathan Greenyard from the Jets, that guy did not start, but when he got on the field, you go look at his pressures to the quarterback. They've been amazing. They've been outstanding, and using him, in pass rush, bring him in. You might can get him for a little bit cheaper than you would get a guy like Danielle Hunter. So we can do it by committee. Remember, the Atlanta Falcons had 40 sacks this past season, and not one guy was over double digits. So you could create that pressure without having a dominant guy. We want that dominant guy. We want that dominant guy. I will keep emphasizing that. But if you can't, go out and get a guy like Jonathan Greenyard, right? Another guy, Zadarius Smith, had a down kind of had a down season last year. Was with the Cleveland Browns, but if you go back to his years with the Green Bay Packers, he really was outstanding. So, anticipate him coming off a little injured season. Zadarius Smith is another guy that they can target as well. Leonard Floyd is another guy. 100% that they can target. We know he has familiarity with Raheem Morris, so bringing a guy like Leonard Floyd in as well. Like I said, definitely, shake the trees on Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree. So those are definitely some guys we need to consider. But those are all the pass rush guys that we need to consider, guys. I'm just saying that they need to make sure that the Atlanta Falcons do not take a step back, right? Going from 21 sacks to 40 sacks was just amazing, and we do not want to take a step back this off season. So they need to be aggressive and solidify, those positions even more. We signed guys to 1 year deals last year. Let's see can we get the guy on a long term deal. Um, like I said, Daniil Hunter would be ideal for us. Um, while it says if we load up on defense and free agency, again, I can see Terry going best player available again, and I can and a top player in the draft. And if a top receiver is still on the board with the 8th pick, they could draft them 100%. That's exactly the way I feel about it as well. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong. Dallas Turner, he really raised his stock, I believe. The way he performed at the combine, just showing his free athleticism, where he was able to run in the 40, and his all his testing that he did, and it translate what he was able to do on film. So, I think he's still a great player, but I don't know if I put him over one of those top receivers. So, I agree. If one of those players on the board, best player available, I think that's the route they're going to go. Um, Another surprise guy that's out there on defense and free agency from the defensive line is Christian Wilkins as well. Um, he is one of the best interior pass rushers that's out there. Don't really know how he'll fit with Grady and Dave Amiyata, but since you're playing in 3-4, let's just put those three guys out there, you know, on the field, and then put some four linebackers behind them. So I like it, but I think his price tag is going to be really high. But like I said, the Atlanta Falcons being aggressive, why not go get it? He's great in the run as well, so we'll be able to tackle both of those. You know, that because that pass pressure from the middle, I think quarterbacks hate the pass pressure of the middle more than anything, right? Because they can't step up in the pocket, right? You can always, go out to either side when you're trying to bail, but the pocket in the middle is, I think quarterback hates that pressure the most. So a guy like Christian Watkins coming in, um, don't know. I mean, Christian Wilkins don't know how much it costs, right? But they could consider it, right? So, like I said, being aggressive, whatever Atlanta Falcons need to do to be able to be really aggressive and on the defensive side of the ball this off season. Now you're talking about guys, um, secondary guys, right? Because we got to be able to figure out our secondary as well. And what's interesting, if you look at who's been cut over the last couple of seasons here, I mean not class cup, this off season, it's some name guys that Atlanta Falcon could definitely target this off season. So it's not like a few, right? It's just like the running backs. All the running backs got cut. This running back, free agent market is really, really wild, right? Saquon Barkley, you got Josh Jacobs, right? You got every big name receiver over the last couple seasons, especially you think about fantasy football, right? Most of all these guys, everybody try to get, 1 and 2 in fantasy football, and they all are free agents right now. So it's this class, this market for the running back, it's really not as what you really want to see when you're a running back, right? Because teams are not going to really be like trying to pay a lot of money for these guys because it's so many. Like if I don't get you, I can get this other guy, right? That's pretty much what it's looking like. And then if you go into the draft, it's running backs there as well. So, but when you're looking at the defensive backs, it was kind of the same this off season, when from a defensive back standpoint. And you got guys like Xavier Howard, um, Trey Darius White, who just got released by the Bills today, Kevin Byard, the safety that the Eagles traded for, and they let him go. Jordan Poyer, safety from the Bills. If he can stay healthy, that's why I think Atlanta Falcons definitely get him at a cheap price. Jamal Adams, Jamal Adams is probably one of the best safeties in the league, especially if he's healthy. But his issue with coverage has hunted him a little bit, so I don't know if the Atlanta Falcons, want to go that route, especially the way Richard Grant played in coverage this past season. Quandre Diggs was released by the Seattle Seahawks. J.C. Jackson released by the Patriots. You got Darius Williams from the Jacksonville Jaguars. You got Rashawn Jenkins from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you got Avonte Maddox from the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you're looking at guys that definitely the Atlanta Falcons can target from a defensive back standpoint, there are guys out there. Then you got our own guys, right? Like you got guys like Jeff Okudah that's looking for a contract. With all these guys on the market, you might can get Jeff Okudah now for a lower price, right? Bring him back, put him back in the system, and you probably can get him back for a lower price because now the market is so deep at that position. Then if you look at the guys I talked about yesterday in the draft, right? The Atlanta Falcons probably can get a solid veteran corner here on the low. They might can get a solid veteran corner on the low, right? And still draft a guy as well, right? So that's the way I'm looking at it. But they got to be able to boost up, get that second cornerback. They decide to go with Jeff Okudah. There you go, right? But if they want to go with any of these other guys that I just mentioned, it's just amazing how many free agents that's out there right now that have been released. Teams are trying to get up under that salary cap number by the new year, league year. Uh, um, it's really interesting looking at the Buffalo Bills, right? Because they pretty much released their whole secondary. I mean, I kind of don't blame them because these guys stay injured, right? So I guess they're trying to go in a different direction there. But that window for the Buffalo Bills, um, how open is it still? They still got their starting quarterback there, but it's a lot of turnover. And then they got Von Miller, but against Von Miller, like, man, the back end is going to be tough for us to try to get that pressure on them quarterbacks and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Bills shape out. But it's a lot of cornerbacks being released and defensive backs, safeties as well. So let's see, can Atlanta Falcons get one of these guys on the low? While it says if they can't get Hunter, they need to try to get Huff and bring in Floyd to place Raheem. There you go. I agree with you. Like I said, and I that's one of the guys I should have mentioned. Bryce Huff, 100%. Bryce Huff is another guy that could definitely target. But you're right. That's why I said do it by committee, right? Go get a Leonard Floyd who has had double digit sack seasons himself. You go get a guy like Bryce Huff, bring him in as well. I mean, these are some of the guys you can do. Like I said, you do it by committee, and you just hope that Armor Ebiketie finally live up to something. Ben is never a second round pick, guys. He got to start to show something there. So we'll just see how it pans out. In this 3-4 defense, I think he's moving back to that. That's kind of why they drafted him because in the Dean P system kind of probably fit that a little bit more. But I thought he had a lot of opportunities last year, and he flashed on plays. He did flash on plays, so it's not 100% is where he has not achieved something. But at the end, what I'm saying is that it's about time for Armor Katie going into year 3. We got to see something from him, right? But that still wouldn't limit, these Atlanta Falcons for trying to be aggressive, right? If they believe, right, they believe that they have a chance to compete, for a championship this year. Um, First, they got to get the quarterback right. We already talked about that. That's like no brainer, right? If they get the quarterback though, and they feel like they can go get aggressive, they get it to Neil Hunter, right? Um, they solidify that cornerback position. They solidify those receivers. You make sure you add extra depth on your offensive line, right? These are some of the things. If they do this, the Atlanta Falcons definitely can have an opportunity. Of course, luck and health always plays a pivotal role, in team success throughout the season. But if they can do these things, I agree with Raheem Morris, him and Terry Fontenot about the confidence they have that they have opportunity to be a really, really good team this season. And it sounds like a freaking, you know, a recording for last off season because this is what we were saying last off season too. We really this is what we were saying. I don't think none of us expected this season to go the way it did last year, but unfortunately, that's just the way it went. So it's nothing we can do about it. We just got to suck it up and let's see what the Atlanta Falcons do. This quarterback situation is just so interesting. Can't wait till it ends, man. I'm tired of talking about it, to be honest with you. The rumors are wild. Um, they are really wild. You don't know what to believe. You try to listen and think what you think. But I believe, just to talk about the quarterback, I just believe if the Minnesota Vikings do not um, sign just Kirk Cousins to a deal by the 11th, I don't think he's going to be in Minnesota. That's just the way I believe. Because they had the whole offseason to negotiate and talk. So to let this man get into free agency for he can communicate with other teams, I don't think that they want to sign him. That's just my opinion. You don't want to let your guy get away and start to talk to other teams. So if they're willing to do that, I think he might be gone. So while it says most of these teams are trying to cut these players to get under the salary cap before the league year starts. Yes, but they're cutting some good players though. That's the interesting thing. And I get it. I understand that what they're trying to do. But you know, what's interesting, the route that the Buffalo Bills are taking is kind of different than like what the Aints did, right? Because look at what the New Orleans Aints did, right? The New Orleans Aints decided to try to go for it, right? They had Drew Brees, they just kept kicking the can down the road. What's interesting, they're still kicking the can down the road, right? They already restructured contracts again this year. I still think they got money that they got to get up. They need to cut to get up on the salary cap, so they still got moves they need to make. But Buffalo Bills decide like we're just gonna go ahead and take it on the chin and start to free up cap space now instead of waiting. You know, because the crazy thing about team building, right? You really supposed to build through the draft, right? That's the idea. That's the really how you try to build your team is through the draft because these young guys, you got control over the cap a little bit, with the salaries and things. But when these guys get into their second and third contracts and they're really talented, it's going to be really tough to keep all your guys. So um, that's why you want to win. Why your quarterback is not making a lot of money, right? Unfortunately for our Atlanta Falcons, we tried that last year. That's where they was leaning, right? It made sense, right? Get a young quarterback, you know, not with a lot of money on the books, and you trying to see can you win with him, and if you can, you know, that's that's the one of the formulas. Think about the Seattle Seahawks. That's the formula they utilize, right? They had a Legion of Boom. They had a young quarterback on a young good contract, and they was really successful for about 5 seasons. To say say, but then once Russell Wilson contract times get up, that's when you start to see it all start to fall apart because the quarterback contract is so much. So now you have the Atlanta Falcons, right? Um, Still is a fringe team, but now they got to pay their quarterback. So what do they do? Are they willing to go all in this offseason and double down? You get the quarterback, with the cash, and then you double down and get the players you need to be contenders as well. They say they're going to be aggressive. I think that's what they need to do. If you go back to one of my first takes when I was talking about offseason, and I said the Atlanta Falcons need to be aggressive this year. If you want to win, you got to do what you got to take, do what you got to do to win. That's what it really boils down to. You know, I want them to move up in the draft to take a young quarterback. Um, but it looks like that might not be the case. So if that's not the case, they need to be aggressive, do what they got to do. Um, I understand the Kirk Cousins signing, trying to get him in because he's a veteran. He's proven. It's no other way to look at it. He's like I said, he's probably the second behind Chris Jones, the second touted free agent this offseason. So that should tell you, what the league think about Kirk Cousins, right? Numbers are numbers, big time wins, playoff wins, all that stuff. I get it, but his productivity in the regular seasons has been good for years, and that's why the Atlanta Falcons went their route. Guy like Justin Fields, ceiling is so high, the potential is so high, but are the Falcons really, really going to do it, right? I think if the price tag drops, I think because everybody was anticipating a second round pick, we can get it for a third round pick. I think the Falcons probably should take a risk on Justin Fields because that's really a low risk. Yes, you got to pay that contract next season, but if he lives up to to the ceiling that he has and his potential, um, and then you will be don't fix your long term problem and your quarterback problem right in one swoop. So that's why I think the Atlanta Falcons could definitely could do that. So while I said Kurt is going to be a free agent on Monday, that's my feeling as well. I agree with you. I mean, the biggest thing about Kurt is that like I wish he didn't have that Achilles injury. I know this is a new medicine and new age right now, but you know, just don't want to have no delayed recovery for him. On that Achilles, it's been a while, so but we want to make sure he come back and be himself. If they're gonna pull the trigger on Kirk Cousins, man, he's 36 years old. I already told you guys what I think about it. What's the succession plan? At the end of the day, I don't think it's gonna really hurt us in the salary cap because I think they really want to sign him and then um, go the route of being aggressive, still in free agency. They'll be able to do that, guys. Trust me, they'll be able to do it. NFL teams know how to find money, right? They got about 4 or 5 guys that they can restructure if they wanted to, right? They can restructure Grady, they can restructure David Amiyata, they can restructure Jesse Bate, they can restructure um, Jake Matthews, right? It's the 4 guys. They can restructure all those guys. Guess what? They can get salary cap. So going out and get a quarterback and then being aggressive in free agency, the Atlanta Falcons can do both. Just want to put it out there, 100%, no doubt about it. Atlanta Falcons can do both. They can do that if that's the route they're going at quarterback. We don't know the route they're going to quarterback. Um, I do believe by Monday we will know, right? Because if what we expect to happen, Kirk Cousins become a free agent, I believe the Atlanta Falcons is going to go for him, right? Because I don't believe that if that wasn't the case, what are you waiting on to trade for Justin Fields, right? If you're not waiting to see what happened with Kirk Cousins, what are you waiting on with Justin Fields? I think the price tag is out there for him. I don't think it's going to lower if you wait. I just don't believe that. I think The Bears know what they can get for him. I think if Atlanta make an offer, I think they can get Justin Fields right now. So that, to me, I just have an opinion. They're waiting to see what happened with Kirk Cousins, right? And so it all rumors. We really don't know. We haven't heard anything from the Atlanta Falcons, but that's where it leans, in my opinion. And if they let him get the free agency, right? Because the Minnesota Vikings had from the end of the season through the season to get a deal done with Kirk Cousins, and they still haven't done it yet. Not then they're gonna let him go into free agency. I just think that is wild to me. So, um, I think he wants to go back to Minnesota. Um, you heard the head coach at the combine; they want him back. So it's not over. They can actually, he could definitely go back to Minnesota, right? And if that does, I think the Atlanta Falcons going to make that trade for Justin Fields. I do believe that. Um, it's still a small window. They could wait and go in the draft and get somebody and try to trade up or something like that. There's still a small chance they can do that. That's why this all fascinating, because we don't know the route the Atlanta Falcons are going to take. We just got to wait. We got to wait. Some of the things that really interesting to me from Atlanta Falcons. If you go back to like one of my first points here is the cap space, right? Because we anticipated cuts. You see every other team cutting. Now, the Atlanta Falcons don't have to get up on the salary cap, so it's not a rush to actually cut these guys. But you want to do these guys favors as well, right? You want to cut them before free agency if you're going to cut them, because you'll let them get right into the beginning of free agency as well. So that's why I was thinking they was going to make these cuts, right? And then we have an idea. So it's just we can't rush things. They know what they're doing. Terry is not a rookie GM anymore. He's coming up on his fourth season, so he know the road. He know the rodeo, so he know how to get it done. It's just we just got to wait and see what happens, guys. I can't wait. Um, I think they got enough smart people, in the organization to get this quarterback, decision correct, and then that being aggressive is what they need to do. That's the way I look at it. So guys, let me know what you think about the franchise tag deadline. Guys like Michael Pittman, guys like Josh Allen, guys like T. Higgins, guys like Brian Burns, right? We knew this. Zadarius Ladarius Sneed. It was a rumor that Atlanta Falcons might trade for him. He got franchise tag. So it's a lot of guys that we knew. The defensive tackle from the Baltimore Ravens got franchise tag. None of these are surprises to us. None of these, right? Um, so like I said, Brian Burns, could he be a trade bait for a team? Um, because the Panthers trying to recoup some draft capital that they gave away from the Bryce Young trade. Um, what about a guy like Brandon Ayuk, right? What are the 49ers going to do with him? Um, so a lot of guys, but the interesting thing that I can't wait to see where all these quarterbacks, I mean not quarterbacks, all these running backs go, right? All these running backs that got released this offseason and then went to free agency. I mean, you got Derrick Henry, you got Saquon Barkley, right? You got Josh Jacobs. You got the running back out of the Chargers. You got the running back out of Dallas. So many guys. Tony Pollard, right? So many guys that's out there for running back position. So that's going to be exciting to see where a lot of these guys land up. Um, One of them probably going to land in Dallas, depending on what the price tag be for them, right? What's going on, Millie Mills? Um, I mean, definitely one of them might land up in Dallas. Could it be Derrick Henry? Could Derrick Henry end up in Baltimore? Right? That would be wow, right? If Derrick Henry end up in Baltimore, right, with Lamar Jackson, could Saquon Barkley end up with the Houston Texans? A lot of people like that move for him. Um, where would Josh Jacobs end up? I mean, the Chargers need a running back. Could Saquon Barkley end up with Jim Harbaugh? We know they're going to be a run heavy team because that's what they do. So we'll have to see how that pans out. So it's a lot of movement that's going to happen. Um, just where we're like 4 days away now um, from the tampering period to start. I can't wait to start to hear, deals that they can't be finalized until Wednesday, but they're going to go ahead and solidify some of these deals, on Monday, Tuesday, right? We're going to start hearing all this stuff. So can't wait. Um, like I said, I can't wait to see what happened. AJ Terrell, we need to know if AJ Terrell gonna get this contract. Remember last year, doing free agency, that's what Christian Estrom got his. So I expect AJ Terrell to get his. I really do. But guys, stay tuned. Stay tuned. Let's see how this thing pans out. Meaty Mill says, um, you're gonna hate this, Rakunda, but I still say Bo Nix is here. All we need to do is a quarterback move all season, downfield, get the ball to the playmakers, and let them eat. It's simple, bro. Hey, so Millie Mills, you missed my first take early when we were talking about free agent quarterbacks. So if you was to go get a guy like Russell Wilson to be your bridge, right? Bringing a guy like Bo Nix, I wouldn't bring him in, right? Because I don't. It's just me, right? But you bring in a guy like Bo Nix and let him sit and learn, right? Um, I think they still if they draft if they sign a Russell Wilson, I think they still need to draft a quarterback. Maybe in the first round, right? Because you don't have to start them right away. So then that's when you go to those secondary guys like a Michael Penix Jr., like a JJ McCarthy, like a Bo Nix, right? You can actually draft one of those guys. I don't think you'll draft them that high, but I mean, if you're saying that's your guy, and you know they're not playing right away, you draft a guy like Russell Wilson, then you know you can use that bridge year. Like I said, Harbaugh is probably going to try to drive Blake Corum. Yeah, I mean, you definitely can see that. Um, I'm no surprise there, but I think he's definitely still going to go out and try to get a veteran running back as well. So I agree with you. Of going to get a guy like Jake. That guy is strong, man. You saw what he did at the NFL draft. Think he, I think he lifted the same many the bench press as the first round pick tackle from Notre Dame. That's crazy. Joe Alt. That was crazy. That guy's a monster, man. And you're right. You know what he's going to get from him if he go to the Chargers. So we definitely wouldn't be surprised about that. Emil says Guard Jr. put up 12 reps. Damn, that's it. That's all he put up, man. Them the guys, I mean, at the end of the day, those combine stuff sometimes it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I think for running backs, speed matters, right? I don't know if you guys remember um Holyfield's son. Remember he went out there and ran like a 4.8 40. Like, yeah, you run a 4.8 as a running back, yeah, you might not get drafted. I'm sorry. That's slow. I mean, he didn't look that slow at Georgia, University of Georgia, but to go out and run a 4.8 40, man, as a running back, don't ever run the 40. Be like, play like your legs hurt or something. Don't put that time on tape as a running back. I mean, we got offensive linemen running 4.9s, and you're a running back, you're running a 4.8. Like, that's not a good look. So for all you guys going to the Pro Bowls, if you know you're not gonna run fast, because I'm pretty sure you run 40s before you get to the combine, so you know how fast you are. And then you get out there and run a 4.8. Like, what were you thinking, man? Come on, like that's just wild to me. Um, yeah, Blake did 27 reps at 225, the same as offensive lineman did. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's crazy. That's dude strong, man. You're right. It don't matter. But damn, 12 reps, but it need to practice. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, 12 reps, man. I think I can do 12 reps. I ain't did 225 in a while. I think I can get out there and do 12 reps right now at 225. So not trying to brag or anything, but I think I could. So so I think I could probably do 12 reps right now. So guys, thank you guys for kicking it with me tonight. Um looking forward to see what these guys going to do in free agency. I think, I mean, if you listen to them, like, this is the words out their mouth, right? They gonna get it right at quarterback. That's what they said. They got enough people. They're gonna get it right at quarterback. So we shouldn't be worried about that. They're gonna be aggressive in free agency. So we shouldn't. So all these things you telling us this, that's what we expect. We expect you to get it right, the quarterback position right, and then we expect you to be aggressive in free agency. And if you do that, I'm riding with you. I'm riding with you. Like right now, the Atlanta Falcons is not just a quarterback away. But if they can do really good in free agency and get the quarterback spot right, they can compete in the NFC. They can. And if I sound like a broken record because I said this last year, you're probably right. Go back and look at the tape and see, did I say we was going to be successful, during this time last year? Probably saying the same thing because we all believed it. We all believed it, but you know, I gotta say it again because now we seen the progress from last season. Right, we was like, man, if we just could nail this quarterback down, add a little bit more here, we can see right now where the holes at. This team can be good, man. It really can. So um, can't wait. I'm excited. I know you guys are excited. Um, my next draft series is gonna be on where am I? Where am I? Linebackers. We're gonna do linebackers, guys. The next draft series we're gonna do on linebackers. Atlanta Falcons probably need to get one more solid linebacker to bring on the team. I like the three linebackers come back. Welcome back, Nate Lemon. Welcome back, Ryan Newsel. Um, two guys that contributed for the Atlanta Falcons last season. Let's see what these guys do. Come here on Monday. This is your boy Ricondo coming back at you with another video. Peace.